Alright, today I would like to introduce you to lights and lighting. First, let's start off with a cube here and just set up a quick little scene. There we go. Alright, so we got a quick makeshift backdrop there. Now I'm mainly going to go over the settings of the lights, as I do with all my other tutorials, which is generally the point. Alright, so we have an Omni light here, and if you're coming from Maya, it's more or less the same as a point light. Just in all directions. Render it out. You'll see there it is. What I'd like to go over, of course, is all the settings and all the different lights you have available to you. So if you start off with this type Omni, that's what we have now, and also spot, infinite, and area. Notice you also have these available here, and notice you also have target. All this is just a light with a target setup. So notice this is the light target, it just moves with it. Or, you could arrange the target expression tag with anything, but that's all it is. We also have sunlight available to us. It's a little bit different. Basically, right here, it's an infinite light. So generally that means it's parallel. It's not restricted in any manner. If we bring this up here. Oh wait, actually here we go. Sun. This is actually what it says it is. It's actually based on the time of day and the year and just about everything else. So notice that's an hour difference in time. And it's also just the brightness and the color. So latitude and longitude. Now if we start changing the time of day, I'm going to notice here it is, and there it goes. Notice it changes the color. The farther it goes down, the warmer it gets, just like a real sunset. So it's a pretty nice feature if you want to try to understand where your lighting needs to be when you set it up. Shadow types, we have shadow maps, which is soft shadows, ray trace shadows, and area shadows. For those of you coming from Maya, you probably don't want to use ray trace shadows in here. They're not what you would expect. Let's get another cube in here just so we can see what happens with all these things. Let's get a few different objects in here. There we go. So we're using an Omni light in here. Drag it out, we render it. Those are the shadows we get. They're really hard edge shadows. If that's what you want, then that's great. Otherwise, you may need to go to anti-aliasing and go to best to get rid of those jagged edges, and now you'll see that they're nice and soft. The edges, that is, the shadows themselves are still very hard. Let's go to the next shadow type here. Go to shadow maps. Just render it out as is, and there you get soft shadows all around. Go to shadows here. This is the resolution. The more resolution you get, the sharper they become. You can also adjust the radius here and see the difference. Soft and hard. So you get more resolution, but if you bump up the sample radius, they're softer. But however, because of the resolution you have, they're very accurate, as you noticed before. With this and a lower sample radius, if you can see it, there's a little bit of distortion in there. We also have bias. Turn that up, we'll get softer shadows. These are things you want to experiment and mess around with when you're trying to get your shadows to look right. And then, of course, we have area shadows, which generally produce an accurate shadow for all practical purposes. Now, of course, this is still an Omni light. Instead of making a new light here, we can change the light type directly under the General tab and change it to Spot. Of course, we got to move it around. Widen up the cone. You can also turn up the intensity and the color, and you can actually have a gradient of color if you would like. If you're not quite satisfied with the result there, you can also go farther and sticking it into an array. For those of you coming to Maya, maybe you're used to having quite a bit more control over the shadows. However, I must say that Cinema 4D more than well makes up for it in its render time. So what you would do, you can stick this light in an array. Of course, you'll notice it's not in the right spot. Let's go ahead and stick that array in the light first. Position it where it needs to be. And then we can stick the light in the array. And of course, you'll notice it's still not what we want. That's okay. We're going to group this. And then we're going to rotate the array to get it facing the right direction. Now we're going to rotate the light inside of the null object. Turn the intensity down. And now we have multiple shadows going on, so we can determine how soft and hard it is by simply using the settings under the light and the array. We decrease the radius. It's just the result we get with one light. Of course, this will crank up the render time. Bring that out some. We'll get a much softer shadow. So you can see the result there. We'll render this out here in the render view. We can see the different results if we tighten this down. And also render this out. And we can see the difference there. So we have softer shadows with a greater radius. Tighter shadows with a smaller radius. Now let's go to something interesting. We also know we have parallel spot. Parallel, spot, square, parallel. Parallel is just complete, just one direction lighting. Turn that off. Bump up the brightness a little bit. So this is just a quick overview of how just lights work in general. There's still quite a few things to show just with the lighting. Here we can change the actual shape of what we see in the viewport here. Much kind of like a handler. Something that allows you to grab your object. You can also size it down, of course, and really won't change anything since it's a parallel light. Oops, if we go to parallel spot, you'll see you just get parallel light.